Greetings, ladies and gentlefish, and welcome to this review of the Cruiser 3, British Tier 2, or one of the British Tier 2 light tanks. Now, spoiler alert out the way, I am bringing you this review because this is one of my favourite tanks in the game, and, I thought it was about time I showed you it, really, apart from just the odd replay here and there. So let's just get that out of the way. Most of the things I say about this machine are going to be positive because I really, really like it. I think it's a fantastic little tank. And, as I'll get onto in a minute, I think it's actually a good tank for you to play from the perspective of learning the game, but I'll get onto that in a moment. So what do you get with this thing? Well, you get 150 hit points, which is pretty standard. 395, basically a 400 horsepower engine, giving this thing a very nice power to weight ratio of 27 horsepower per ton. Speed limit of 48 is not bad. I mean, it's not the fastest light tank out there, but it's certainly not slow. And the good engine power means that this thing is very mobile and gets around absolutely fine. Armour, let's get this out the way. The armour on this thing is utter trash. 14, 14, 14. If you're looking at the turret, well, there is a choice of turrets. If you go with the stock turret, go on. Stock turret, you're looking at 14 all round. If you mount the upgraded turret, then your side turret armor goes down to 12, but you gain 4mm of spaced armor on the side. It's all irrelevant. The armor on this thing is trash. The T-18s will one-shot you, standard fare. Talk about the gun in a moment. Traverse speed of 35 is okay. Turret traverse of 42 is really good. View range of 320 may not sound particularly good, but it's actually fairly respectable at Tier 2. And 450 meter signal range, not that anyone really cares about that. So, there are a few things that define this tank. Firstly, its mobility. It's a nice, mobile machine. Secondly, its gun. Its gun is awesome. Its selection of guns, but we'll get onto that in a second. Thirdly, it has 15 degrees of gun depression. Yes, that's right, 15. So you can just poke your turret up above little hillocks and dunes all day long and shoot people. It is fantastic. So let's talk about the guns. No, before I talk about... let's talk about the guns, sorry. I'll get that out of the way. Alright, there are 3 guns on this machine. There are really 2, but I guess we'll talk about all 3. Let's start off with this. This is the stock gun. 15mm Besser machine gun. And it is bad, but... Okay, so it's a 15mm gun. It's clip-fed. The clip takes a very long time to load. 18 seconds. The damage per shot is only 19, but you'll spew out a whole load of shots. The penetration of 27 is bad. The accuracy is bad. The aim time is good, but you won't really notice it. You have to use this gun up close and personal. This is the stock gun, and I would not recommend using this any longer than you have to. While it may be fun driving around and blitzing people with this thing, there are some targets you won't be able to penetrate, and if you like that playstyle, there's a better gun available. So then you get these 2 guns, and they are both, in my opinion, a viable choice. So, firstly on the left, quick firing 2-pounder Mark 9. This is a gun that's common to a whole range of lower tier British tanks. It's a 40mm gun. It fires 24 rounds a minute. That's quite a lot. Average penetration 64. That's very high for tier 2. That's punch straight through a T-18 and not care most of the time. High. With premium ammunition, that goes up to 121. What this means is that this tank... Now you can see I don't have any premium ammunition loaded on this machine because it really doesn't need it, but... If any of you have ever watched some of, for example, Jingle's videos, he has a tank called the Panzer IIJ, which is a tier 3 light tank, so this could potentially face it, and it has 80mm of frontal armour. It's very, very, very rare, but if you were to face them, you could load your premium ammunition and punch straight through the front bit. The premium ammunition on this thing is terrifying. High explosive penetration 23, kinda garbage. Damage 45, 45, 60. Dispersion or accuracy at 100 meters, 0.4. Now that may not look very good, but actually for a tier 2 machine, that's pretty damn good. Aim time 1.9, which is very nice indeed. So this is a regular, quick-firing, high-penetrating anti-tank gun, and it's a good gun. Now, the top gun on this tank is the pom-pom, 40mm pom-pom. This is basically a modified version of an anti-aircraft gun. What you get is a magazine-fed weapon with 4 shells in the magazine. It's an autoloader. It takes 8 seconds to load the clip, just over half a second between shots. So you can unload your entire clip in less than 2 seconds. The penetration is 49 with armor piercing, 71 with armor piercing composite rigid, and 23 with HE. You won't load HE on this thing. Basically, the penetration is 49 or 71 with premium, and the damage is 45 and 45. Dispersion is 0.48 compared to the 0.4 of the 2-pounder, and the aiming time is 1.9. What you basically with this gun, you lose some accuracy, and you lose some penetration, and you lose some overall DPM and rate of fire in exchange for having that magazine, that autoloader, the burst damage. And the burst damage on this is pretty damn respectable. 4 shells doing 45 damage each is 180 burst damage, which will consistently kill most, if not all, tier 2 tanks in the game, assuming all your shots penetrate. So what you get really is a choice of guns, and which gun you use depends on your playstyle. If you like to drive around and just basically blat people to death at close range, use the pom-pom. If you prefer to take a more cautious approach, using your gun depression, your badass view range, and you want just a general purpose anti-tank gun, use the 2-pounder. I use the 2-pounder. I prefer it. I think it's the all-round better gun, but people do also have success with the 40mm pom-pom. But for my money, the 2-pounder is better. Why? Because I think this tank suits a slightly more cautious playstyle rather than driving around and blatting people at close range. Why do I think that? Well, firstly, if you're blatting people at close range, most of the time you're not using that awesome gun depression. Second point, the armor on this tank, as I've already mentioned, is garbage. So if you're up close and personal with people, you can be damaged, you can be hurt, can and will be damaged and hurt. And things like the T-18's howitzer will one-shot you. And finally, this is a big machine. I mean, there's the light, Vickers Light Mark 6C. Let's compare it with some other tanks. Where's the, there we go, T1E6, T2 Light, T7 Combat Car, M24 Chaffee. Where's the cruiser? Boom. It's about the same size, slightly longer. It's about the same size as a Chaffee, and the Chaffee's quite a large tank. And for that reason, it's going to be very easy to hit in close range fight, and so for my money, the 2-pounder is the better gun to use, and the more cautious playstyle is the better playstyle to use with this tank. But you can also use the other gun if you so wish. And when I mentioned earlier on, it's a tank that rewards a good player. I think I said that earlier on. I meant to if I didn't. This is what I'm getting at. If you go and load up your T-18, Tier 2 American Tank Destroyer, and you drive that around, you will go around and you will one-shot people if you're mounting the howitzer, you have badass armor, etc, etc, etc. But that gameplay does not translate well into higher tiers. If, however, you use the cruiser with the 2-pounder, then what you basically end up doing is being a mobile sniper, moving around, using your excellent gun depression, good mobility and good view range to get supporting fire in, to get a lot of damage in. Sometimes, you know, on Himmelsdorf you can drop the first mastery badge I ever got on this tank. I did it by driving up the hill on Himmelsdorf and just using my gun depression to peek over the edge, take a snapshot and pull back. I think I've got a video of that on my channel, but that's how I used it, and it worked. And that playstyle does translate well into many of the higher tiers, especially if you're interested in medium tanks, and I'm thinking, for example, of the Leopard 1, the FV 4202, the Comet to a certain extent. it translates very well to that. So if you're a good medium tank driver, although this is a light tank, if you're a good medium tank driver and you're good at not taking damage, at not being shot, and you're good at and can abuse or use the spotting mechanics, the view range, etc., then playing this tank at tier 2 is very much like playing a higher tier tank. Which is beneficial because often people find that there are very distinct playstyles in tier 2 compared to higher tier than tier 2. Whereas if you do this, generally speaking, that's not the case. I mean, yeah, you can pump out 4 shots and you'll kill pretty much anything at tier 2. But yeah, as I say, the playstyle translates well to higher tiers, which I think is good. So, what about the grind? Well, okay, if you can call it a grind, this is a tier 2 machine, for goodness sake. So you have to play the medium Mark 1, which won't take you very long at all to get through. When you go through the medium, you have 5 different tanks to choose, leading onto a bunch of different lines. If you want to go along the cruiser line, so the British in the early mid-20th century did not delineate their tanks by light tank, medium tank, heavy tank, etc. There were infantry tanks and cruiser tanks. Infantry tanks were heavily armoured, slow, and were designed to advance with the infantry and give them support. Cruiser tanks were designed to break through the lines. So the Cruiser 3 is one of the early cruiser tanks. And they were designed to be mobile, have respectable firepower, but very light. So here you go, you get through the medium Mark 1 and you are faced with this. Now, assuming that you have elited the medium Mark 1, what modules are you actually going to have available to you? I don't actually think you have that many. Whoa. You don't actually have anything unlocked for you when you get to this. So you will play it in a completely stock configuration. But, I mean, this is a low tier tank. Maybe you've got some free XP that you can use to unlock a bunch of stuff. But if you don't, it won't take you long to do so. The stock engine is alright. You know, the top one is an upgrade, but the stock one's okay, so I wouldn't prioritise that. I would start off prioritising the guns. So I would unlock these 2 guns, then unlock the engine, then the suspension, then the turret, then the radios. I mean, what's the signal range on the stock radio? 350, and on the top radio, 450. Going through all these radios, you only actually gain an extra 100 meter view range. British low-tier radios, low-mid-tier radios are kind of rubbish. But it won't take you much to unlock all of the modules on this tank, and then you can work on the Cruiser 4. So what about crew skills and whatnot? So, crew skills. Sixth Sense. Sixth Sense, Sixth Sense, Sixth Sense. Especially if you're going to play this with a more cautious playstyle. Now you'll notice I haven't actually got Sixth Sense up to 100%, so it's not currently doing anything, but it will get there eventually. My recommendation would then really be camo on everyone else, or possibly snapshot and smooth ride, something like that. But it will take you a while to get your different skills and perks. I mean, you could go Brothers in Arms as well, but it will take you a while to get all that. But Sixth Sense is definitely a good idea. As for equipment, I would recommend improved vents, not a bad choice. I mean, at tier 2 your choice is rather limited on what you can actually mount. So I go improved vents, camouflage net, binocular telescopes, because the camo net and the binos I can just move around from tank to tank without worrying about it. If you want to maximise your view range, then go improved vents, binocular telescope, coated optics. But with binos you'll outspot most people anyway. You could go for an enhanced gun lane drive, but the aiming time on your gun's pretty good anyway, and if you're looking at that, I mean, you're talking about spending 500,000 credits on a piece of kit for a tank that would sell for less than 20. I mean, yeah. Do be a little bit careful with how much money you want to blow on this thing. But, very good tank in my opinion, which is why I've kept it, and I still play it from time to time. You know, and why would I recommend keeping? Well, I would recommend keeping a lower tier tank. Why? Well, if you have a friend who starts playing the game, it means you have a tank you can platoon up with them. It also means that when you get really frustrated with higher tier games and everything's just going wrong, you can just go back to low tiers, jump in whatever your machine of joy is, and just play and not worry about losing money and all the rest of the gumph that can come with playing the game sometimes, especially at higher tiers. So I do recommend that. I do not recommend exclusively playing lower tiers for so many different reasons that I'm not going to list here. But, you know, dropping back to tier 2 just for a game here or there when you're really frustrated and fed up is not a bad idea, in my opinion. So I've rambled on long enough. I'm not going to show you a detailed schematic of the armour as I usually do, because the armour on this is complete trash. It's a waste of time. We'll just go to some gameplay. And you can see how this thing performs for yourself. Here's the replay for you. So this is a tier 2 game, and we are here on Province, which is a map you don't see in the higher tiers. The highest tier tanks that see this are tier 3. And you get a much more limited map rotation down here at the lower tiers. But we are going to see what we can do. So here is my cruiser. You can see I'm using the 2-pounder gun, 40mm. I don't use this as a complete seal clubber, you know, it's not stacked out to the nines with premium ammunition and consumables or anything like that. But I do use it to relax and have some fun. And one thing you should immediately be able to see, as I mentioned, I think before, this thing is a big machine. You know, it's for a tier 2 light tank, it's massive. Don't make that thing let you think it has any armor. It really doesn't. But there we go. So I'm initially going to go over to one of my favourite spots on this map, just underneath their ridgeline here. It's a lovely defensive spot, I guess. It gives you shots onto anyone from their team who is trying to scale your ridgeline, like for example this T-18. So there we go, it looked like that shot hit, second shot hit, and third shot nets me my first kill. And whilst T-18s are scary tanks, this is one of the tier 2s that I'm not scared of them as much as I am in some others, because I know that I can regularly penetrate them and kill them. Of course, if we're in a close range firefight, I am also aware that if they're packing that howitzer, they can kill me with one shot, but you know, you win some, you lose some. So I managed to get a shot on that T-60. And you can see that as long as they try and keep scaling our ridgeline, for me this is just going to be a shooting gallery. This is a deadly position to take up. T7 combat car. Oh, that was a bad shot. You can also see that this thing has a good rate of fire. I have no idea how that shot bounced. That one missed, but he's going to sit there and... oh god, that one missed as well. Come on, Tom. Gunnery. There we go. Much better. T-60 is also sitting there. We're going to have another shot. And the T7 combat car appears to have decided that he needs to, you know, move around that side. That's not a stupid position to take, but the position I'm in completely counters it. And that's my second kill. Now I know there's a T-60 around there somewhere as well. Possibly some others. Oh, another T-18. Ooh, I do so love killing T-18s. Now one thing you can see is that this gun does reload faster than it aims, which can be a problem. But you know, it's not too much of an issue most of the time. There we go, 2 kills in quick succession, taking out the T-18 and the T-60. So there's a T2 light tank that has actually made it up toward our ridgeline, and he could potentially be a thorn in our side. We're currently losing 5 kills to 6, and on my team, 4 of those kills are of course mine. So I'm hoping this T2 light tank makes a mistake and pokes himself out around that rock. Then I can get some shots on him. In the meantime, there's a D1, and the D1's very slow. Now I critical hit him rather than doing any actual damage. And oh yes, T2 light has come around that corner. Let's have some carefully aimed shots. 1 or 2 shots more, but it looks like he's pulled back to have the rocks as cover. So there's still that D1 moving around somewhere over there. Don't know exactly where. And this is the reason that I use this gun as opposed to the pom-pom. The pom-pom is more dangerous at close range, but this is just a much more flexible weapon. You know, you couldn't do this in the pom-pom, and I prioritise the T2 light tank because he's in a much better position, and I managed to take him out so that he's no longer spotting our team for his team. Oh, I thought he was going to go backwards and he didn't. 1 more shot to kill this D1. But yeah, this is a much more flexible gun. There we go, he's dead. There's my top gun. And it also gives you the flexibility, not flexibility, the penetration to put shots straight through T18s. And if you really need it, now I've never felt the desire to load it up, but if you want to use the premium ammunition, you get 121mm of penetration. Now, I might start packing a few rounds of that, because in tier 3 games, well, since people like Jingle started talking about the Panzer IIJ, that overpowered little bundle of terror, they're not a common sight, but you do start getting the odd one or two crop up here and there. And, you know, this can get into tier 3 games, so I could potentially face one. And 121mm of penetration would be a nice way of making it sod off. Although for most applications, the penetration on this gun is more than sufficient, nay, probably overkill, which is nice. So I'm just trying to move along here now and see if I can spot some of the enemy team. I'm on 6 kills myself, which means, you know, there have only been 2 kills made on our team that were not made by me, but there we go. This is what happens when you take a more experienced player and put him in a lower tier game. No, I can't see anyone at the moment. But I am being very cautious because this is a giant machine with bugger all armour. And only 150 hit points, which is, you know, about average, possibly slightly below average for a tier 2 light tank. So you do need to be a bit careful with this thing. No, no one appears to be showing their faces. Just waiting for things to develop a little bit. There we go. I was waiting for this guy to show his face, basically. There's a shot into him. That one missed. And there we go. There's kill number 7. And that leaves our team 9 kills to 8, the better. Now I'm pulling back from that position because sometimes you can get spotted from those bushes there and people can shoot at you. Now there's a T-26 who appears to have decided that just because everyone else that's tried to scale our ridge has died, doesn't mean that that would happen to him. Well, I must confess, I beg to differ. I think that that's a pretty good indicator that, you know, the same thing will happen to him, but whatever. Oh, a couple of bad shots there. One more to take him out, and there we go. There's kill number 8. Worth pointing out that it's not worth a Radley Walters medal, because for a Radley Walters you need to be, I think it's tier 5 or higher, and this is only a tier 2 machine. But it does mean that the best anyone else in this game can do is tie with me on kills. No one can get more kills than me. I'm trying to get myself in a position where I can get some shots on someone. We're 2 tanks up, but, you know, one of the enemy team is a T-18, which can be a very, very dangerous opponent. Despite the fact that I've killed 2 of them already this game. Which is nice. So I decide that someone should probably go up to their ridgeline and spot some of their team out. And seeing as no one else is likely to do it, that might as well be me. So I've gained a bit of high ground. There was a Panzer II over there earlier on, but I'm pretty sure he was actually taken out. There's their T-18. If our artillery could do something about him, that would be very much appreciated. And you can see that the engine power on this thing's pretty respectable. You know, I'm going vaguely uphill, but I'm chugging up it at a good old rate. And this is actually a very mobile machine. It's not the out-and-out fastest in the world, but it's pretty mobile. And I like it. So, just seeing if we can get some spots on people, and there's an M2 light. There's the T-18. And I'm thinking if I can get myself into a position to finish this guy off. Trying to see if I can come up behind him to give him the good news. Use my awesome gun depression. Oh, but I missed. And someone else kills him. Fine. There's only 2 of them left. Panzer II. Oh, my shot misses. And at this point, I decide discretion is the better part of valor. He took off half my health in one salvo. I don't want to give him the opportunity to take off the rest of my health. I take a bit more damage, but I decide to mountain goat it down the hillside. Take my track out in the process, but, you know, we'll eventually put that back on. And here's the point. They've got an M2 light tank and a Panzer II remaining. But they are in comparatively strong positions, and if they play their cards right, they can still win this, especially as the M2 light is on a good amount of health, and especially as that Panzer II just blitzed our Panzer II. So, rather than assaulting uphill, and bearing in mind whilst we have a 3-tank advantage, not all of those tanks are actually assaulting, it would basically be me and this D1. While we could charge up there, up toward their high ground and try and make that work, we don't actually have to. And I mean, the guy who's giving us direct fire support at the moment is in a Panzer II with an autocannon, and you can't really snipe with that thing. So I'm initially thinking about going up here to help that D1, but I decide better of it. You know what? Screw this for a game of soldiers. I've got 8 kills, I've got a lot of damage. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to sit in the damn cap circle. I'm not going to faff around with all this trying to kill them rubbish. I'm just going to come down here and force them to come to us. And this is a win-win situation. Either they come to us and give us the advantage, as we will then be the people who are pre-aimed and all that jazz. Or they don't come to us and we win by cap. So either way, we're sorted. There we go. Myself and the D1 are sitting in the capture circle. And I'm using this little divot in the terrain to try and block any fire coming at me. So if they decide to come down that ridge where I'm currently aiming, I will be presenting a smaller target of my tank, so it will be harder for them to hit me. And the enemy artillery is already saying good game. It's not quite over yet, mate, but, you know, hopefully it will be soon. There's the M2 light. Panzer II shooting at him. I get a shot onto him, pull back, and there we go. We've captured their base. And we've basically won. There we go. And that ended up actually being an ace tanker game. High caliber, Top Gun of course. The most experience I've ever got in that tank. It was actually also the most damage I've ever had in that tank in a game, and it was more damage than the rest of my team combined because I worked it out. Anyway, because I'm sad. Hopefully now that you've had a taste for what this tank can do, let's just quickly nip back to the garage for some concluding remarks. So just to sum up, what do I think of this thing? Well, as I've said, I think this is a very, very fun tank to play, and I think unlike a lot of the tier 2s, it does actually benefit from someone who is a competent player, and the playstyle from this can translate well to some of the higher tier tanks, in particular the higher tier mediums. So if you're looking for a low tier machine just to keep and have fun in every once in a while, then I do recommend this. It's a great little tank. I really can't fault it. True, the armor's garbage, but the armor on most of the tier 2 tanks is garbage, and you have a punchy enough gun that you really don't care about things like T-18s most of the time. You can just punch straight through them. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that. This review, possibly even found it vaguely informative. If you did, please feel free to catch some of my other videos and or subscribe to my channel, and I wish you very happy hunting on that battlefield. Ciao ciao.